Hello fellow brawlers, I'm Kairos Time, and it is time to brawl. Today we're going to be going over the most recent balance changes. Sorry, my hair's not done and I'm wearing a hoodie. That's right, the most OP hoodie ever! Okay, yeah, so I just barely got back from Finland. I'm still out of town though, so I'm not in my recording studio. But anyways, guys, we're gonna go ahead and go over these balance changes, guys. And for today's video, we're not only going to go over what the balance changes are, we're also going to talk about how every single balance change is going to change the 1v1 interactions between all of the brawlers, okay? Additionally, I've got a team of pro players that are ready to explore the meta and help come up with the most accurate tier list to date as soon as possible, so make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell so you do not miss that. Let's go ahead and start off by talking about the brawlers that got nerfs. Then we're going to talk about the brawlers that got buffs. And lastly, we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen to the meta because of these changes. First of all, guys, we have Poco, who's receiving a 5.7 damage nerf from 700 to 660 base level damage. So this translates at max level from 980 damage down to 924 damage. This means that Poco will require one more hit to take out Colt, Brock, and Dynamike, who will now require 5 hits instead of 6, Pam, who will require 7 hits instead of 8 hits, and then El Primo and Frank, who will require 9 hits instead of 10 hits from a Poco. Up next on the nerfing block, we have Dynamike, okay? So the time that it takes for Mike's super to explode once it is thrown is going to be increased from 1.1 seconds to 1.3 seconds. This is an 18% nerf to that time that it takes for that bomb to explode. Now, I've done some preliminary testing, and yes, it does seem like that is just enough time for most brawlers to run away from the super if Dynamike is auto-aiming that super, and that, I think, is a fantastic change to Dynamike. But more on its impact on the meta a little bit later, guys. Next, we have the brawlers that are going to be receiving buffs, okay? So Jessie is going to be getting a 5% buff to her regular attack damage. At level 1, it's going from 780 to 820 damage, and at max level, her attack damage is going from 1092 damage to 1148 damage. Now, although this is only a 5% change to Jessie's damage, it actually changes her 1v1 interactions with quite a few brawlers. She will now be able to 3-shot Barley, Ricochet, Piper, Spike, and Crow. On top of that, she is now going to be able to 4-shot Penny, other Jessies, and Tara. Lastly, she is going to be able to 7-shot El Primo and Frank. Penny is also receiving a 5% buff to her attack's damage. At level 1, it's going from 800 to 840 damage, and at max level, it's going from 1120 damage to 1176 damage. Now, this buff alone does not change too many 1v1 brawler interactions with Penny, but she can now take out Pam in 5 hits instead of 6, and she can now take out Daryl and Bolt in 6 hits instead of 7 hits. Additionally, Penny's burst damage, if a shot does hit an enemy brawler, is now going to pierce through enemies that get hit by them. So basically what this means is that that burst is no longer going to act like a Shelly's shot, but it's going to act more like a Tara's shot. If anything, this is going to make Penny a little bit more punishing against teams who really tend to clump up, or against brawlers with turrets placed right in front of them like Jessie or Pam. Speaking of Pam, she is also receiving a 9% buff to her regular attack's damage. At level 1, this means that each cog that hits a brawler is going to increase from 220 damage to 240 damage, and at max level, this means that the damage is increasing from 308 to 336. This means that if all of the cogs from Pam's attack does hit one brawler, that means that she will do over 3,000 damage to that brawler, which is just insane. This means that Pam will be able to take out every single brawler with 1 or 2 less cogs hit in a 1v1 situation. If all of the cogs hit in every single shot, the only 1v1 interaction that changes is actually going to be against other enemy Pams. Assuming the enemy Pam is not healing, Pam can now take out Pam in 2 complete shots instead of 3 complete shots. Frank is going to be receiving 2 range buffs, 1 to his attack and 1 to his super. His regular attack range is being buffed from 5.67 tiles to 6.33 tiles, which is an 11% buff. To put this into perspective, this is the same range as Nita's regular attack. Frank's super range is also being buffed from 6.67 tiles to 7.33 tiles, which is an 11% buff. To put this into perspective, this is the exact same range as Shelly's super range. Okay guys, now let's actually talk about my thoughts on the meta and how these changes are going to influence things. Starting off with Poco. Poco was just simply way too strong, okay? I'm really excited to see that he's receiving a nerf to help balance him out. I still think that he's going to be very strong in the same game modes that he was strong in, but this will hopefully make some more room for other viable options. Let's talk about the gem carriers and discuss the balance between them all, okay? So one important interaction to be aware of is that Jessie can now 4-shot an enemy Penny. Now that's important because Penny can 4-shot a Jessie, and Jessie used to take 5 shots to take out an enemy Penny, but now it is the same, which means that the first brawler to hit those first 4 shots is going to be successful in that gem carrying position. So this means that in a 1v1 interaction between a Penny and a Jessie, Penny will no longer have that upper hand against Jessie before their turrets are up. One other interesting interaction is that Penny can now 5-shot a Pam, while Jessie still needs 6 shots to take out an enemy Pam, which means that Penny is going to be a better counter against Pam. And the fact that her bursting shots now pierce through and deal damage to both the enemy healing station as well as brawlers that are clumped up around that means that Penny really is a very good counter against Pam. Now Pam did get a damage buff. Basically what this translates into with these 1v1 interactions is 1 less cog to take out an enemy Penny or an enemy Jessie, which honestly really is not that much. It will make a difference, but I still think that Jessie and Penny are still going to have the upper hand. Lastly, it now takes Poco 1 more hit to take out an enemy Pam, and other than that, Poco's interactions are basically all the same. With all of these interactions taken into consideration, here's what I think is going to happen, okay? I think that Poco is still going to be a usable gem carrier, especially when paired up with tankier teammates. I also think that Jessie is going to become a more obvious choice with a lot of players. But I think that if you can get really good at aiming her shots, I think that Penny is going to be the best gem carrier in this next meta. She is a hard counter to Pam, especially with the piercing burst effect of her regular attack. She outranges Poco by 2 entire tiles, and it is easier to juke a well-aimed Jessie shot at range than a Penny shot due to the fact that Penny's shots actually have a faster projectile speed. And lastly, Penny's turret typically has a better time at countering Jessie's turret than Jessie's turret does because of the fact that it can attack behind walls. And of course, one last gem carrier that I do need to mention, and that is Piper, who is not typically a gem carrier on a lot of maps, but she was recently introduced as a gem carrier for the really skilled players as a hard counter to Poco. Penny used to be able to 3-shot Piper, and I still think that she's a good counter to Piper as long as you're good at dodging those shots, but now Jessie can actually 3-shot that enemy Piper, which means that I think that Piper is going to struggle a little bit more now, especially because I think that there are going to be other brawlers other than Poco that will become more meta. Now the next thing that I want to talk about is, will Frank be OP, okay? I'm hearing a lot of people saying that Frank's range is going to make him really OP, okay? Let's go ahead and put this into perspective. Honestly, I still think that Frank is going to be just fine. As far as his range goes, he's going from having the 4th shortest range attack to the 5th shortest range attack. So this is going to change some interactions in some situations, but I think that once people actually learn what that new range is, they're going to do just fine keeping him out of that range. This is going to help him interact with some of those shorter range brawlers like Bull, El Primo, Mortis, even Nita, who he is now going to tie in range with. But I think most of the time, he's going to be just fine for most brawlers to really handle. What I am slightly worried about is his super's range, okay? So his super range is going to be increased by 0.67 tiles, and while he's going from having the shortest super range out of all of the brawlers, he is now still going to have the shortest super range out of all of the brawlers, but now tied with Shelly. So Shelly and Frank have the same exact super range, and now they're both at the bottom. Once again, I don't think this is going to change a whole lot. I think that at first people are going to be a little bit afraid of Frank and seeing that different range, that different range increase. But I think once people learn what that is and get a good feel for what that range increase really is, they're going to be able to stay away from him just fine. Okay guys, now let's talk about Dynamike. Dynamike was an extremely strong brawler, and I still think that he's going to be pretty strong. But honestly, the only reason why Dynamike was frustrating to play against was the fact that you could not dodge an auto-aimed super. You didn't even have to be super close to a Dynamike, and you could just auto-aim it and it'd throw out and it would hit you no matter what. You could not do anything. There was no reason to ever aim a Dynamike super. And now, after a little bit of limited trying and testing out with his super, it does feel like this nerf is just enough to give people a time to escape. Now, if you do hesitate at all, you go back and forth, you'll still get hit by an auto-aim Dynamike super. But now there's actually a reason to aim and try to really focus on hitting those enemy brawlers. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Once again, make sure you subscribe so you do not miss that Brawl Stars tier list. For now, this is Kairos time ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars. Man, you know what really makes my day, Lex?
What makes your day, Kairos?
When somebody watches my video.
That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for making my day.
It's you. You're wonderful.
That's right. If you're still watching this, you haven't made my day. Go watch one of the videos now.
I'm a little disappointed that you haven't already, actually.
Yeah. You can watch one of his too. Like, whatever it takes, just watch one of them.
Yeah. But you're still here, not clicking those buttons.
What are you doing, man?
I don't know. What are they doing with their life?